Potential Experts is brought to you by Vermonti's. Craving something cheesy, crispy, and unforgettably delicious? Say hello to Vermonti's Pizza, where every slice is a love letter to the Green Mountain State. From classic pepperoni to our legendary mac and cheese pizza, we're serving up bold flavors you won't find anywhere else. Order online, get 20% off your first order with promo code Vermonti20. That's VERMONTY20. Hit us up on Instagram at Vermonti's_Vermont Eats to see what's hot and fresh right now. Vermonti's Pizza. Homegrown, handmade, and hella good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Potential Experts. I don't even want to call it a skeleton crew because honestly, you ever heard this term addition by subtraction? That's what we're dealing with right here. No Brandon tonight, no Ethan tonight. You got the Bens talking some basketball. We are a national sports podcast, so we are going to rip the other three major sports and don't go grab like a soda or anything from the fridge, or don't turn your dial down on your radio, because we're going to do it in the next 60 seconds before we get to the real main sport we want to talk about. So the United States, talking Olympic hockey right now, United States did defeat Sweden today 2-1 in the quarterfinal. They will play Slovakia at 3:10 on Friday. So hopefully the day you're listening to this, we're playing Slovakia for a spot in the gold medal game. The other semifinal will be the Canadians, who narrowly escaped in an overtime victory today against Czechia 4-3. They were actually down 3-2 late in the third period and made a comeback. They will take on the Finland, and the winners of those respective games will meet in the gold medal game on Sunday morning at, I believe, 8 a.m. It's one of those early ones. Football, real quick. The Seahawks, the defending champion Seahawks, decided not to franchise tag Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker. That certainly doesn't mean that he won't be back, but if they do, they will have to negotiate either a different kind of one-year deal, because the franchise tag is a one-year deal, or they will sign him long-term, or they're going to let him walk, and he's going to be one of the more sought-after running backs we've seen probably since Saquon Barkley. Ben, baseball.
Baseball, yeah. I mean, pitchers and catchers are there. I guess hitters are there now too. Baseball fact: Aaron Judge is looking very good down in that spring training. Yankees got a little prospect pitcher too, though.
LaGrange?
Don't remember his
LaGrange?
name.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. He's looking like a future ace for sure. Say what you will about the Yankees, those guys can develop pitchers. That's what I've noticed in my going on third year of fandom. Developing hitters, not that great. Looks like Ryan McMahon's going to get some run at shortstop this year. There's a certain Italian, a little up and down. But I'm excited for baseball
Here,
to get
Jason
rolling.
Dominguez probably is facing an uphill battle to even make our opening day roster, which he was our number one prospect pool that we neglected to trade for big time guys for years now, because it's the Martian, and now he's, again, probably not going to make our opening day roster. But we're going to have plenty of time to get upset about the Yankees in July, when the Yankees have lost 15 of 24 games and there's no hockey, no basketball. Fantasy hasn't really kicked up yet. There's not too much to talk about. We'll sit here and complain about the Yankees. Trust me, there's no need to do that. I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have their June swoon.
Yeah, just in time for you and
as
I.
they famously
They
do.
always do it every time you and I rip those games. We've, I think, been to 3 Yankees games together. I think we're 0 for 3, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but I'm excited. I got a couple ones on the docket. Excited for some chicken tenders, some drinks, and just having some fun
Dude,
in the sun. It's a lovely part about being a teacher, just having
yeah.
a beautiful summer day in the Bronx. Doesn't
We
get
had
much better than
lobster
that.
rolls when we went last year. That was what a treat, as you would say. That was phenomenal.
I had lobster rolls.
They had it at
Oh,
I ripped the lobster roll. I'll tell you that. I don't know about you.
It's so fun. Yeah, baseball is
Yeah.
funny. I'm gonna try to get to a few stadiums this summer.
Yeah.
I
We'll
think.
rip City Field, get
It'd be
down to
cool.
Philly, see the bank. That'd be a cool one to do. Rip that with Hank, maybe. That-
Yeah, that would be a treat. Maybe even get up to Fenway. We'll see. Fun fact: Brandon's dog is named
Yeah.
Fenway. What is a Fenway? What's a Fenway? About 5 pounds, famously. The more you know. Big day for me. Turned 24
Happy
yesterday,
late birthday to you.
so I'm in my Rondé Hollis Jefferson year. Not a ton of other players rock 24. I know Paul Millsap when he was in Utah.
You got me thinking now. Ty
Yeah.
Law with the New England Patriots,
There's
Hall of Famer.
Tyler. Great. That's a running back number, right?
Yeah,
Who is it? Who's the dude on the
Marshawn Lynch.
not the
Marshawn
Hawks?
Lynch.
What are they? The Falcons? No, not Mark. I mean, yes, but I'm thinking about Was it Devontae Freeman or so? He was a fantasy
Devontae
stud.
Freeman, definitely. He was a stud for several years. He wasn't like one of those one-hit wonder guys. Like, for several years, it was like he was a mainstay in the first round of fantasy drafts.
So yeah, I'm trying not to be a one hit wonder myself. Bit of the mainstay in just life, you know. I got a guy I work with. Apparently, he's number 3 in the nation in yo-yo. And by nation, I don't mean Guatemala in the United States. And my students ask me, they're like, "Why aren't you number 3 in the nation at yo-yoing, like Mister So and So?" It's like, I don't know, man. I'm just number 3 in life. You know what I'm saying? So that's where we're going. And we got room to improve, though. I trying to be top 3, not 3, not
There
2.
you go.
We're
There
working
you
on it.
go, man.
In terms of actual sports podcast, that is what this podcast is about. We are entering that beautiful time in the NBA where if you're watching basketball in February, March, professional basketball, that is, you are quite the fan. Your average Joe is tuning into March Madness. You got conference tournaments coming up pretty soon, I guess. Winter Olympics, World Baseball Classic. I mean, this is like, there's good stuff to see in the NBA this year. And I always think coming out of the All-Star break, we're about 2/3 of the way done with the season. And before you know it, the playoffs will be here. April might feel far away, especially if you're in one of those cold states up in the Northeast, but it's coming up. And with April, get playoff basketball. And heading into this home stretch, I wanted to go through, I got all 30 teams ranked. We'll obviously spend more time at the top than at the bottom. But I have, how many tiers I got here? I got one, two, three, four, five, six. I got 8 tiers. 8 tiers for us. Uh, and we'll go through them, talk about the teams, and we'll just kind of roll from there. Do we want to start at the bottom or start at the top, Ben? What do you want?
You know what? I was gonna say start at the top, but no. Let's. I feel like we usually work like top down here. Let's go bottom up. And obviously, as you stated, we're not going to spend too long talking about the Wizards and the Nets and the Jazz for that matter. But let's rip it.
All right, so my bottom tier consists of 8
Does it
teams.
have a title?
This is
Oh,
the
there you go.
double.
Sorry.
Yes, this is the double M4 Shermans tier. What is an M4 Sherman, you may ask? That was a very significant piece of military technology in World War II. It was a tank,
Mm.
hence the tanking teams, used by the Allied forces as a mainstay and a lot of their action in that war. Very, very important piece of technology. So we got the double M4 Shermans tier. A tier above is the single M4 Shermans tier because what's worse than two M4 Sherman? What's worse than one M4 Sherman? Two. So we got the double tanking teams here. This is like bottom of the barrel. And unlike the singular tank tier, these guys don't have a ton of hope going forward either. So while this is a ranking based on this season, you got to take into account how the fans are feeling about the team. So at the very, very bottom of this tier, my bottom ranked team in the NBA comes from my home state, and that is the Brooklyn Nets. I'll fire through all 8, and then we can talk about the ones that are big. Number 29, at the Sacramento Kings. Number 28, the Washington Wizards. Number 27, the Indiana Pacers. They'll be back next year, but for this year, they're 27. 26, Chicago Bulls. And 25, the Milwaukee Bucks. Any of those teams jump out to you as particularly interesting? They really are just like, I'm an NBA sicko. If I see these guys on League Pass, I'm not really tuning in unless maybe I'm making dinner and they're like on in the back.
Ironically, I actually think of those. It was 7 teams you named, right? Of the seven, or
6 of
six of
them,
them. My
yeah.
bad. Of the 6 teams you just named, obviously, you kind of gave the caveat of the Indiana Pacers. They'll be back next year. The Milwaukee Bucks, it does seem like Giannis is going to return. It doesn't seem like that's going to be shelve him for the entire year. So they'll gain just a good amount of interest that he draws when they return. Aside from those caveats, though, I'd actually say, in the weirdest way, the most interesting team to me is the Brooklyn Nets. I do have been slightly impressed by the development of some of their picks. I think Yegor Dioman has shown flashes. I recall watching his game where he hit like a bank three to send it to overtime and then hit 2 deep threes in overtime to take the lead against the Orlando Magic a few weeks ago, to which I believe it was Paolo Banchero hit a buzzer beater, one of the bright spots. One of the few bright spots of the last 2.5 months for the Orlando Magic, who got off to a decent start. We'll talk about them later, but they have since loaded,
Mhm.
and we'll talk about them again within the context of Franz Wagner being out indefinitely. But you have him. I know that Miles Powell, the kid from UNC, he projects as a real
Drake Powell.
Drake Powell. Who was Miles Powell?
Who is
He
Miles?
played for Marquette. He was a right. He was a stud in March Madness. No,
I'm not a big
fair enough.
college guy. This is not the right man to
Understood.
ask.
I'm actually watching a little college ball right now. Creighton, UConn. Anyways, back to our regularly scheduled program. Yeah, Drake Powell. They like his development as a defender. I've even seen like little positive stuff about Nolan Traore. Unfortunately, the positives about Danny are a little fewer and further between, and there is nothing positive to report about Ben Saraf. So, I mean, they had 5 first-round picks. I remember texting a buddy of mine, Katz, after he's a big Brooklyn Nets fan for some reason. I really don't know why, but he is diehard to his credit.
Is he from
No, he's
Jersey?
from Glastonbury, Connecticut. This kid's a Colts, Nets, Yankees, and Islander fan. It's very strange, but he is diehard and like he didn't like hop on the bandwagon when Katie and Kyrie joined. It wasn't one of those. Like as long
Mhm.
as I've known him, he's loved these teams. It's strange, but credit to him. Anyways, though, I remember texting him back in June when they made those 5 selections and saying, "What do you think? I can't imagine you're that happy." And he made some kind of good point. It was like, it remains to be seen. The reality is, if one of those guys ends up being a good player and two end up being a role player, like very, very successful draft. And even if two of them never even see any meaningful time, I'm like, that's fair. Like if Dioman ends up being a good point guard and Wolf ends up being like a good stretch 4, stretch 5 kind of guy, and Powell ends up being a very, very solid defender off the bench. Doesn't matter what Saraf and Traore turn into. They could turn into nothing, and it is somewhat successful. So I do find it interesting to watch them from time to time. I did enjoy.
I do like Yegor. It's weird because in the draft, like the whole thing on him was like big point guard, but can't shoot. Like he's gonna rack up assists, but he's got to work on that outside game, kind of like a Josh Giddey type. And he is just kind of the polar opposite of that. I think he's big enough for a long term. You will probably see him more as a two than a pure one, kind of in that like Lonzo Ball vein where he can be your point guard, but you kind of want him as like a secondary creator. He's big enough. He has the tools to be a good defender, even though at his young age he's nowhere near that yet.
I don't think BYU breeds
But he is fun to
defenders. I just
watch.
don't think whoever coaches at BYU, I think it's like a prerequisite of taking the job. It's like you're going to teach our student athletes no defense whatsoever. They're going to be snipers, right? But no defense is allowed at all.
We'll see with
Yeah, true.
Debansa. Famously, he's got some tools. But yeah, I mean, in a weird way, I would really like for Brooklyn to get good. The best part about sports, maybe not the best part, but one of the best parts is rivalries. And the New York Brooklyn thing, even now, with how lopsided those teams are, there is still juice for those games. And it is fun to watch, those two teams play against each other. It's a real like big brother, little brother thing. And they've just never really been good at the same time where we got to see that rivalry in full effect. You had a little bit of like those mellow teams with the Deron Williams and the ISO Joe teams, but besides that, we haven't gotten it in a while. So I never want Brooklyn to be better than New York, but I would like them to think that they're good and then have New York beat them, and it's a little more fun. Because right now, beating up on Brooklyn is just like,
Depressing.
that's what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do. Like, there's not much use to it. For me, out of those six, I'm a big Washington guy. Enjoy some of that young talent they got. Ray Johnson, very fun player. He's got quite a lot, well, not maybe not quite a lot, but he's definitely got some young Ray Allen to him, which is fun to watch. It'll be weird to see him next year. I mean, we've talked about AD and Trae Young already, but they are fun. I think they probably have the most hope out of those
Indiana?
six, outside of like Indiana as the caveat. But they're a fun crew. And out of those teams, you know who deserves that first pick this year? Out of Milwaukee, Chicago, Indiana, Washington, Sacramento, and Brooklyn?
Sacramento?
Because to me, it's very clear. It's
Yeah.
Sacramento. Those guys are tanking in the right way. Like, they're just bad. They're not doing this nonsense, in and out dudes, all like, they just can't win. And you got, I mean, poor DeMar DeRozan. I still think that guy could contribute to a good team in like a super six man type role. So, in my heart, I hope that they get the first overall pick. Plus, keeps it out west, which is always good.
Yeah, I'm very much hoping for a situation, and we'll talk about the draft as it gets closer. We don't have to dive deep into that right now, but some kind of situation where the Kings end up with the first pick. And I know the following team isn't doing it ethically, but just for the concept of keeping it out west, it'd be nice if the Jazz got maybe the second pick, and then that third, maybe New Orleans gets the third. Just like keep him in the Western Conference. Don't have to worry about Boozer, Devonsa, or Darren Peterson. Although I'm not sure that Darren Peterson likes to play basketball, but that's again, that's something we can discuss more towards the draft.
Yeah, not to get too much into the draft, but I always find that weird because you see guys who like don't love the game, and you get guys like Andrew Wiggins who have all the talent in the world, but then just don't, fulfill those expectations. But then a few years ago, they were saying that same stuff about Anthony Edwards. And when Minnesota drafted him, I was like, why would you not draft LaMelo? Why are you going with a guy who doesn't love basketball? You're getting another Andrew Wiggins, and then something clicks. I mean, these guys are so young that they get a little older. They realize the importance of like putting in that work. And you have a guy like Darren Peterson who could easily go down either of those routes. I would still probably take him first overall, maybe Debansa. But he'll be an interesting player to see develop because I do think he could kind of go either
I
way
agree
with
with you. You
him.
want to go to your next tier?
Yeah. So my next tier is the singular M4 Sherman teams. It is a 4-team tier. Just because I don't know, I feel like they got something a little more going on at least than these other teams, but they are still tanking. So 24 is Memphis. 23, kind of. I mean, they're not like full tanking, but they really should be at this point. Is Atlanta. 22 is New Orleans, and 21 is Utah. New Orleans, obviously, and Utah have very low records compared to Memphis and Atlanta. But I do feel like if they were trying, well, for Utah, if Utah was trying, they would be a better team
Yes.
than those two. And New Orleans still, there's enough there where this is where I'm putting the fan kind of point of view in on it. They have enough young talent where like at least there's a reason for me to tune in and watch those guys, and it's a little bit fun for me, Trey Murphy, Derek Queen, Jeremiah Fears, Zion's still there. So those are my next teams in like that M4 Sherman tier.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be remiss if I don't point out. I don't usually. I kind of stay out of like whatever teams want to do with their players. Usually, I'm like, that's your business. What Utah has been doing the past several weeks in terms of just like flat out not playing clearly their best players in the fourth quarter. It's disrespectful to the game. It's disgraceful to the game, quite frankly. It's no, seriously, like at some point,
How's the weather up there on that high horse, Ben?
dude, listen, you want to talk about an ethical tank? You want to know what an ethical tank looks like? Rolling out Lance Thomas, Luke Cornett, Lou Amundsen, Langston Galloway, Alexi Shved. We could go on. Jason Smith. I know you could. We could go band for band as it pertains to just awful.
Aldridge.
Oh, yeah, Cole Aldridge, Kyle O'Quinn, Quincy Acey. I mean, seriously, that's ethical tanking. And by the way, for those of you listening who probably know none of those names, those were all just abysmal New York Knicks from like 2015 to 20.
New York Knicks like starters and heavy
Yeah,
minutes guys too, not like back of the
no.
bench
And the
type of
most notable
dudes.
name on there is obviously Luke Cornett. Luke Cornett is not was not the serviceable backup center then that he is now, and he started for us then.
No,
I'm just really.
he was like a stretch big. Very weird career development for
Very,
that
yeah.
guy.
So just to be clear, so don't sit there and be like, oh, well, at least you had Luke Cornett. No, he wasn't that guy. Anyways, no, but seriously, dude, like when they just what was it, like two fourth quarters in a row? So it's just I think it was several fourth quarters in a row. They didn't play Markkinen, Triple J. This is before the whole thing with the growth in his leg or his knee was found out. And then I believe there was another guy that didn't play either that should have played for them. And they actually messed around and beat the Miami Heat, I believe, in one of those games. They lost another one, but they did mess around and win. I guess that's karma to a certain extent. Jazz are tanking in perhaps the most egregious way I've ever seen. And tanking is one of those things to me where I feel like as a pretty knowledgeable sports fan, I have solutions to a lot of different problems that you could possibly bring up. Tanking is not one of those solutions. I really thought we had witnessed the end of tanking, or not maybe the end, but like the regression of tanking when those flattened lottery odds debuted in the 2019 draft, where instead of the worst record getting a 25% chance and funneling down from there, top three have a 14% chance and it's just all flattened out. That's not the case. If anything, it's just gotten more widespread. Instead of tanking for that top spot, you're
Mhm.
just like tanking to get into like the top eight because you don't know what happens. Like look at the Mavs last year; they had the 10th best odds and they landed flag. I'm curious.
Well, that had some strings attached to it,
Definitely
but
did.
I will say with the tanking, I think this year it is particularly bad because this is going to be another one of those historic drafts. I mean, we got in 4 years, we've had a Wemby draft, a flag draft, and this like three-headed monster draft that's coming up. The next two drafts are supposed to be terrible. And I do think just because of like the reward at the end of it all, it will chill out these next 2 years, regardless of what changes do happen, which will be nice. But in a draft like this, it's just going to happen unless you completely remove record as an incentive for draft position. But we'll get away from this
Well,
at least for a couple of years after this
yeah, true.
draft.
So before I want to get your thoughts on the Hawks. Before I do that, though, I want to shout out two of the absolute worst ideas I've heard to eliminate tanking. One being eliminate the draft and have these guys be free agents. Actually, would probably work out for us as Knicks fans. I feel like a lot of guys would want to go to Boston, New York, Los Angeles, Miami. Pretty much, maybe go down to like Texas. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, no income
Yeah.
tax.
But like it probably would work out for us realistically in the long run, but dreadful idea. The other awful idea that I heard was just have it be like on a random cycle where the records have no indication on where you pick. So you just randomize like the next 30 years and each team gets an opportunity to draft out of each slot. I get the appeal because it does eliminate tanking, but I don't think the end justifies the means in that aspect. I mean, the example that I heard today was like, what if OKC, or actually, I guess a better example would have been Denver because they were the champion that year. What if Denver, after they won it in 23, had the first pick that year and got the opportunity to draft Wemby and paired Wemby and Jokic? That's ridiculous. Or if the Celtics, after 24, granted they would have gotten Risachet or Sar, so that wouldn't have done, I guess, too much. I mean, what about this past year? What if it was OKC and they added a Cooper Flag to that? That's just like, it's just a terrible idea. So those were two of the worst ideas that I heard. If you have a comment on that, you can make it. But if not, I'm curious why you have the Hawks as low as you do. I'm surprised at that because they do still have players.
Yeah. I don't have anything else on
Okay,
tanking. It's been talked
got it.
about a lot. It's not my favorite topic, but I don't know. Atlanta's just depressing, kind of in the way that Memphis is depressing. They're very similar to Chicago, I think, where they're not bad enough to, have a good shot at a top pick, but they're not good enough to do anything. Jalen Johnson, like low key, has fallen off quite a good bit since the start of the year. I still think he's a good player, but Jalen Johnson is not the best player on a legitimate playoff team. He's best fit in that OG and an OB like Derek White level. I think he's probably a better guy than those two, maybe, but maybe not even. Like he's kind of on that level. And then, I mean, I don't know. What else do you have going on? They're really banking on that New Orleans pick heading over their way, and being something good. If that happens and they get a top three pick out of that, great. I got a very different opinion on them going forward. But I mean, Dyson Daniels can't play offense, and he was like, "Oh, this great young piece we have." I don't know. Wouldn't want him on the Knicks. Wouldn't want him on my team. Like, you can't just play a guy who gives you nothing on that end. You need spacing, especially at that position. Nikhil Alexander Walker seems great when he's coming off your bench. Not a starting point guard. He's like probably a top three, six man in the league, bottom five starting point guard. He's overtasked at that position. Google, again, good, not great. I don't know. It's just a lot of mediocrity. I think maybe my cat is going wild right now. Maybe I should have had them ahead of Utah and New Orleans because they do have some flexibility this summer. They have some cap space. If a guy like Austin Reeves is interested in going there, that could change things a little bit. But then you kind of have that Trae Young problem again. So I don't know. They just seem very Chicago Bulls esque, and I don't think they get as much flack for it as Chicago does. Maybe because it hasn't been going on for quite as long. But like, what route does Atlanta have outside of that New Orleans pick to be a legitimate contender in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what happens ultimately, but I mean, the Porzingis thing was a swing and a miss. Obviously on there, and I don't blame them. They bought low, and it just didn't work out. It's not like they lost all these assets by any means, but that didn't work out. Then you got the Trey Young thing. They had to move on from him. They just salary dumped a guy that they were paying about $50 million a year to get Corey Kispert, who is an okay like seventh man, and CJ McCollum, who obviously that was just salary filler.
And who Hawks fans cannot
Really?
stand. Yeah, that guy drives them up a wall. Yeah, I've seen. Well, I am retired from Twitter now. Now that the deadline is passed, I'll probably hop back on when free agency gets going. But yeah, From when I was on there, they were sick and tired of CJ McCollum after about 3 weeks of seeing him play on their team.
CJ McCollum's creating a lot of enemies, not just with his play on the court, but his role in terms of introducing these as president of the Players Association and negotiating for these aprons. He's public enemy number one in a lot of places. Boston, not the least of those. Yeah, I think that's a fair analysis on Atlanta. I think the more I look at them and their recent month, I guess like the last time I really watched them was when they were given the Knicks belt. When the Knicks went through their January swoon, and seeing now that they're 26-30 in 10th in the East, only a game and a half outside of not even being in the play-in and have lost three straight. Yeah, I guess Atlanta's one of those teams similar to Orlando. I've mentioned Orlando several times today. That looks better on paper than they realistically look on the basketball court. So, yeah, you make some good points. It's just kind of filled with mediocrity. I think we can move on.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would much rather be a fan of Utah going forward than I would for
Yeah,
Atlanta. I probably
I
should have
like
had
Utah.
I probably should have had him ahead of New Orleans. That's my bad. But I'm pretty happy with the tier they're in at least. All right, my next tier is a one-team tier. It's the 20th ranked
Wait,
team in the league.
can you
This
give me
tier is
did you name this tier anything interesting? Can I guess the team, or did you just name the tier the team?
I mean, the tier has a name that's not the team name, but you will guess it when you hear the tier name. Do you want to take a guess
You
beforehand?
said so I won't look at the standings. Can you give me East or West? Is it even West?
West.
Is it the Mavs?
Yes, this is the bad with the
Okay.
flag tier. I think from what we've seen, it's very early to call it, but I think Cooper Flag will be a top five player in this league. If Jason Tatum's a top five player, this guy is Jason Tatum with a little more ferocity to him, a lot more ferocity to him. He's doing things, and Boston fans were saying it and for years after he was 19. But Tatum was doing things at 19 that were crazy. Flag is doing much, much more than that in a much worse situation where he doesn't have that structure around him that Tatum had. So I think Flag is just, I mean, in that past month, averaging over 30 a game and being a beast on defense and contributing heavily, stuff in the stat sheet with rebounds and assists. Just having that guy on your team, I will say this. You can't hold me to it though, but I'm going to say it now. I think if I'm building a franchise from scratch, I'm taking Flag before I'm taking Wemby.
Wow.
Just because,
Wow.
I mean, Wemby's there's just a lot of
There
risk
is.
involved. And I've seen teams win rings with a Cooper Flag type of player at the helm of that roster, that big wing who can do it all, who can dominate on both ends. Obviously, Wemby is a freak and will also probably be, not prob, like, is already arguably a top five guy in the league. But I mean, with him, just injury concerns, guys like that, you just don't see it a lot. I feel like Flag is a much safer bet to build your franchise around. And he just makes Dallas a whole entire, different situation. You got Kyrie coming back next year. I think it'll be great for Flag. We talked about that the other week at the deadline with them not trading him. The Lively thing's disappointing. It seems like a guy whose career is just going to go off track because of injuries, which was a shame because as a rookie, he was great alongside Luca. But I mean, Cooper Flag on his own, I think they can't be worse than 20. So I got him there on their own little tier.
Yeah. Flag was a guy I was rather unimpressed with in the first month and a half of the season. I thought that guys like VJ Edgecombe and Con Knipple absolutely deserved rookie of the year consideration over Flag. I felt like he remained so high in the rookie rankings because of his name value. Not that he was dreadful, but I was largely unimpressed. And boy, has he flipped the script. He has just been exceptional, as you said, averaging over 30 a game, doing it offensively, doing it defensively. He's a high flyer. He can get out in transition and punish you at the rim. He can pull up. He has a nice little turnaround mid-range game, can spot up from three, that three-level scoring. He is truly exceptional. Question for you. I actually thought you were going to go a different direction when you ultimately went Flag versus Wemby. You're starting a franchise from scratch. Flag or Luca? Flag, yeah.
Flag. Yeah. I need to build a very specific team around Luca to be good. You're seeing it in LA. Flag is not probably not gonna be the one man offense that Luca is. You can like in today's NBA, so many teams are putting up 120 a night. It is so easy to get elite offensively. If your top dog on offense is going to also give you that elite all NBA level defense as an on-ball defender who can guard up, can guard down, and is also just an insane weak side defender coming in blocking shots, like that is so
It is.
rare. Like that's what makes guys like Tatum as a two-way guy, guys like Wemby, guys like Shea, Like that's what's Anthony Edwards. That's what separates them from those other stars. That's why, as much as I love Jalen Brunson, he's never going to be on that same level as those guys because he's given it, to your team one way. And unless you are a Jokic level, like arguably the greatest offensive player to ever touch a basketball, then I'm going to take the two-way guy. And Luka is up there, but he's not. He's not at the level Jokic is. And I don't know. It's just. I mean, Flag is a kid. Like he
He
is a
is.
child. He can't drink yet. Like I'll leave that one. But he like, did you see that play where he came down on the break, stopped with Dylan Brooks all on him, gathered the ball, came off of two, and just like punched it like Dominique Wilkins as a literal child against a tough, one of the most physical defenders in the league. That is
He's
insane.
mentally tough too. You can tell by his demeanor too. He doesn't care. He doesn't
Hmm.
care what the media says. He doesn't. You can try to get under his skin. Like I'm sure Brooks was chirping at him throughout that game. He does not care at all. And like I know he's not in one of those markets where you notoriously have to be mentally tough, but I mean it doesn't certainly doesn't hurt, and it's an incredible attribute for a kid, as you mentioned, to have.
Yeah. And Dallas is not like a small market either. They're not one of the big ones, but it's not like he's playing in Utah or Portland or something. So anyway, that was the one team for the tier. I got 4 tiers left. This is another depressing tier. See, now I'm looking at my tiers. I messed something up because I got Atlanta again in this tier. So I must have skipped some teams somewhere.
Well, you know
That's
what?
okay.
We're gonna
Whatever.
do a
They
little
don't all
sleuthing at
matter.
the end then.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But this is the playoffs slash play in by default tier. And this is Atlanta again, magically. They're just so interesting. I put them in twice. And then at 18, you have Miami. 17, you have Portland. And 16, you have Orlando. Orlando and Portland are at the top of this tier because they're on the younger
Mhm.
side, at least. But those teams, you'll see them play some April basketball, but they didn't necessarily earn their way there. They just kind of, someone's got to be there. So it's going to be them. Those are, with Miami and Atlanta being there, those are two of the famous play-in champions that are always going at it in that little Eastern Conference shindig. Yeah. I mean, so those are the teams I have. Orlando's had a train wreck of a
Yes.
season. I picked him as the first coach fired, Jamal Mosley. It hasn't happened yet. We've had a coach firing in New Orleans before then, but he's still definitely on the hot seat. I don't think he'll be back next year by any means. I don't know if this core is going to be back next year. They were in rumors at the deadline. And Banchero's development has not been it.
Underwhelming to say the least. Underwhelming to say the least.
Yeah, and the talent to production ratio is so out of whack, and they've just kind of been the same team offensively for like 5 years now. They're barely a top 20 offense with the amount. I know they don't have a ton of spacing. When you have Suggs, Bain, Wagner, and Banchero, and I know injuries are an issue, but they're always an issue with that team. And Anthony Black, for that matter, too. You should be able to put together at least a top half of the league offense when you look at talent alone. And then they don't have the defense they used to have. They lost that edge, and I don't know why. Maybe Jamal Mosley has run his course. He's worn thin on players. But that was a team I was pretty high on at the start of the year. If you had told me in August that Orlando was having the season that Detroit is currently having, I wouldn't have batted an eye, like at all. And they just haven't done it. So they're in this little default, just you know, participation trophy tier that
Yeah,
I got
before
here.
I get to the basketball element of Orlando, I do have a gripe with Jamal Mosley. Dude, stop zipping the sweaters all the way up to your neck. You look like you're about to choke. It pisses me off. I know it has no right to piss me off, but it does. Let your breathe a little, dog. It bugs the crap out of me. I'm sorry. I'll move on after that. Yeah,
Fashion
yeah, I guess so,
aficionado,
right? Yeah,
Benjamin
famously,
Pagliaro.
famously. Honestly, with Orlando, you talked about spacing being an issue. That's an enormous issue because they sent out 4 first-round picks, and granted, I know they attached an additional pick, which they probably could have sent out 3. They attached an additional 4th to move off the KCP contract, but they sent that out to Memphis this summer to go get that spacing and a guy like Desmond Bane, and it quite frankly just hasn't really amounted to much. Both the 2 of their best players, Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero, are solid. Franz is an okay 3-point shooter. Paulo's not a good 3-point shooter. It's just the construction and the makeup of the team is very, very, very strange. And when their identity the last few years was all defensive, and when you remove that's not totally removed, but when you regress defensively, but your offense stays the same, and thus you're a more underwhelming team than you were in years past. Again, after you've just sent out 4 first round picks to propel yourself from kind of that mid tier of the East to the upper echelon of the East, and you totally strike out. Yeah, it's someone's going to be held accountable, whether it's coach, whether it's GM, whether it's Paolo Banchero. Someone is not going to be back next season, and it's going to be interesting to see who it is, barring a surprising playoff run into maybe a tough second round series or Eastern Conference final. They're so uninspiring. They're like almost similar to like the New York Rangers of the NBA, where I just categorize the Rangers as uninspiring. I feel the same way about Orlando.
Yeah, and not to toot my own horn, but I did say this in our NBA preview. I know some of you guys were pretty high
Yep.
on the Desmond Bain signing for spacing, but one man can't space for a whole team, and you can't have one shooter. And if that's the case, I mean, we're seeing teams with a lack of spacing still produce higher level offense. Case in point, Detroit. That's why I compare the two teams. There's no reason for Detroit to be this much better than Orlando, at least on the offensive end. When you look at the guys they have there, you got Duncan Robinson and you got Desmond Bain. Those are your true shooters out there. And no one else really. Cade's a good shooter, but not like any better than Suggs is really. I know Suggs is a little up and down, but like both teams have an entire front court of non-shooters. All-Star Thompson, Tobias Harris can stretch a little, but he's not always, out there. Ron Holland, Jalen Duren, those
Not
guys,
shooters.
they're not shooters. And they figured it out. You got to cut. You got to get a little creative. And so that's why I do think Mosley will be gone. And I think Van Caro could be gone too. If you're one of these teams in those M4 Sherman tiers, like a Memphis, like a Chicago, Brooklyn, Washington, maybe not Washington because they've already made some moves. Would you be interested in buying low on Bankero this
Yeah, I mean,
summer?
think about it, especially just because you just mentioned this. Think about if you're Memphis and you can send back 3 of the first round picks that you acquired in the Desmond Bain deal. So you still get to keep 1
And the Jaren
and the
Jackson
Jared
deal.
Jackson.
Like they got what, 7
Yeah.
or 8 between those two? I think it was
Yes,
7.
I'm just thinking specifically about the picks they acquired from Orlando. Like they are Orlando's picks. Like if you can send them back control of 3 of those 4 picks in order to get Paolo Banchero, I mean, think about that. That would be a fleecing beyond belief.
Yeah, that's why I feel like Orlando would just be like, we can't
Yeah, I
make
mean,
this
just
trade
on face
just
value
for
alone.
like pride's
Some
sake.
something that I thought about while you were talking, comparing the 2 teams, Detroit and Orlando. Imagine if somebody came up to you September, the day the Knicks made the cat trade. So late September 2024. I believe the day was September 29th, if I'm not mistaken. And they said, hey, moving forward for the rest of their careers, because they're 1 year apart, would you rather have Cade Cunningham or Paolo Banchero? You would have said Banchero, and you wouldn't have thought twice about it. And because that was before Cade.
Yes, and we had a similar conversation too. I think we've talked about this a few times of like, would you rather have Bankero or Chet? And you were always a
Always.
Bankero guy, and I wasn't as positive on it as you were, but it wasn't a bad opinion by any means. And just, I don't know, the development's not there, but I do think if you're a team like Brooklyn, why not? Go take a swing. A change of scenery could do him some good. For his sake, I would like to see him end up in a good franchise because I think that's going to be helpful for him the same way you talk about like those guys in the draft, like a Darren Peterson, who like maybe they like basketball, maybe they don't. So much of this is
Yes.
fit. And Orlando's not a terrible franchise, but they're not like one of those elite ran franchises. So maybe even, Miami. Miami goes and gets Paolo Banchero. I'm sure he'll end up being very good. So teams like that, actually now that I say it, Miami should go look at Banchero this summer. As much as I hate Miami, that would be a good fit for
They
them
miss
and a
out
good
on
move.
Giannis. I think that's a very viable possibility for them, but you know that they're going to put their eggs in the Giannis basket this summer. Is there another team that you feel like, because I know we've been talking about Orlando for almost 10 minutes, I feel like, is there another team that from that tier that you feel like is worth talking about? We already talked about Atlanta.
Yeah,
On the Miami note, I mean, I gave them credit early in the year for kind of, Eric Spoelstra kind of reinventing their pace of play situation. But it's exactly what we talked about in our preview, where ultimately they just don't have the talent. I recall your bold prediction was Miami finally transitions to just a full-on tank. They're obviously not going to do that. That's just not in Miami's DNA. But I kind of feel like it'd be the best move for them at this point. But
Mhm.
they're just going to keep rolling it out. Who knows? Maybe they end up as the 8 seed. They very well could. I would think that.
That'd be a fun 8 seed to play.
I mean,
Be a very
we're going to
fun
get
8
to this
seed.
team in a minute, but I would hope that I would assume that the 7-8, the way the plan's currently structured, I would bet Orlando, Charlotte, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, I guess that'll take us into our next tier here. So this is we're halfway through our tiers. So we did the 4 bottom tiers. This is where we start getting to the fun teams a little bit. So this is my 4th tier from the top. And this is the 1 round stands. So these guys, they're going to be in the playoffs. At least they should be. I guess mathematically, one of these teams. Actually, no, they mathematically all of these teams can make it. And they kind of deserve to be there. I think they'll give good fights in whatever series they have, but I would be floored if any of these teams made it out of the first round. So at the bottom of this tier, you got Golden State. I mean, the Butler injury killed them, but still got some talent there. You obviously have top 10 player of all time on the roster. 14, I have a tie, which is both LA teams. They're both being dragged by one just superstar. Kawhi has been a top 5 player in the league this year. We didn't talk much All-Star because who really cares? The game was a lot better this year. And one of the best moments, if not the best moment, was that
That was
Kawhi heat
awesome.
check. Awesome to see on his home court.
He should have
Very
won the
cool.
MVP. That's
I mean,
what I
on the
heard about.
Lake. And then the Lakers as the other team in 14. You got Luca. Not a great roster around him. LeBron's last year there. I'm sure that'll come with some good content this summer where LeBron's going to go. 13, got Toronto. 12, yeah, Charlotte, one of the most entertaining teams in the league, and 11, the Phoenix Suns. And so that's my 1 round stands tier.
It's funny. You could have called that. I guess with the exception of the LA teams, you could have called that. Well, especially the last 3 teams you mentioned, like the great stories tier, because the Suns, the Hornets,
Yeah,
and who was that other team that you named? And
the
Toronto.
Toronto.
Those 3 teams have been just exceptional stories this entire year. I mean, the Suns were, I feel like, a top 5 pick candidate going into the year. Credit to Jordan Ott, credit to Devin Booker, Dylan Brooks. They've reinvented the way that they play. Grayson Allen as well. And
Colin
Colin,
Gillespie.
Colin Gillespie, yeah,
Gillespie.
another Nova boy. They have been phenomenal to watch. But I agree with you in the sense that none of those teams can really be trusted to have any faith in them winning a playoff series. You said you'd be floored if any of them win a playoff series. I'm not floored if Luca and LeBron find a way to win a playoff series. I'm not floored if, well, I guess depending, I was going to say, I'm not floored if Kawhi drags the Clippers. That depends on the matchup. Like, I'd be,
And they're going to be
yeah,
an 8 seed. They're going to be
yeah,
at the
like
bottom of that.
they're not beating Denver or OKC. Probably don't really stand a chance against San Antonio either. They'd have to.
And again, as great as the Kawhi thing is, because it is awesome, there's always going to be not an if, but when do those wheels fall off? He's not going to be able to, keep up this level of play, the amount of touches he has, the amount of usage that he's got going on. His body can't handle that. We all know that to be
Let's
true.
okay. So let's go. That's first. Let's go back to the Lakers for a second. Let's say they're the 6 seed and they play. Let's say San Antonio gets the 3, Denver surpasses them and gets the 2. You're giving the Lakers no shot against San Antonio?
No
Really?
shot.
Wow, that surprised me. You don't think Aiden's going to eat
Dude,
Wembanyama?
who's guard? Yeah, I was going to say, you had DeAndre Ayton. That's your
I know.
center. Your 3 best players are cones. San Antonio has the fastest, most athletic guards in the
Yeah.
league. De'Aaron Fox sees Reeves, LeBron, or Luca. That's a treat. He's seen a buffet. Same thing for Harper and Castle. And they have the guys to just bother Luca relentlessly. I would be floored. I would chop off my pinky on my hand, not my foot, because you need that to walk. But I'd chop off my left pinky finger because I don't go left when I play pickup. I'm going right only. I'd chop that off if the Lakers were able to make it out of the first
So
round.
you're a real big Jalen Brown guy.
I would certainly do that.
Big Jalen Brown guy yourself?
Like we said, it's more of a Gallinari thing. I don't have the speed of a Jalen Brown out there. I'm slow and controlled, but I get my buckets. All right, they're gonna yell shooter when I'm out there.
I love that. I love that. Yes, I can shoot, Jose Alvarado. I mean that's fair. I guess when you kind of put it that way, and you break it down a little bit more specifically, I definitely looked at it from a surface level kind of perspective, of the sense of I could see Luca and LeBron that experience beating an inexperienced Spurs team. But when you go into the nitty gritty and break down the matchups, it does sound like a matchup nightmare for the Lakers. So that's
And also, the Lakers, they're not going to. San Antonio is almost the 1 seed. They're going to have to play, if they're the 6 seed, they're going to have to see
yeah,
Denver. And for years now, you think Ayton on Wemby is bad? Try Ayton on Nikola
yeah.
Jokic, the best offensive player of all time. Like, it's not
There's
going to go well.
realistically only two guys that can stop Nikola Jokic, and they both reside in New York.
Big
Big
Mitch
country.
and famously Karl Anthony Towns. That's the one matchup he plays defense in. You know what? If we see a finals, I'll pray that continues.
Yeah.
You got to give Wemby some credit too. You know, he could be the best defensive player ever.
Yeah, I was obviously joking around, but I will say Mitch and Cat do defend Jokic well as he can be defended, I guess, because you cannot stop him. You can do your best to neutralize him, not even really contain him, just neutralize him. All right, I think I mean, I'll talk real quick about Toronto. Like I already said, great story. I don't trust them to win any playoff series. You and I have been. I'm always a big be careful what you wish for guy. I want Toronto first round for my Knicks. I think it would be barbecue chicken. I think we dispose of them in 5. And I think it'd be a gentleman's sweep. So 3-0, they win a game 4 in the in the 6. Is that what they call it? Yeah,
Scotiabank
yeah.
Arena.
Drake's courtside, starts flapping his gums a little bit, and then we pull Kendrick Lamar and shut him down real quick. In game 5 back at the Garden. I really, really, truly believe that we're that much better.
Did you see his Super Bowl halftime show?
No, I did not.
Kendrick
Oh,
Lamar?
I thought we were talking about Drake for a second. Yeah. I saw Kendrick's halftime show.
It was crazy. I wonder who they're going to get next.
It was fantastic. Anyone else? Anything?
We good for the
I'm ready
next
for the
year?
next tier.
Yeah. Shout out Charlotte. They're awesome.
Well, yeah.
But they're going to see Detroit round 1. And that's not because, they're not going to be able to catch up to get into that 7 seed because they're going to have to go from the 9-10 to playing for the 8 to get in. I don't think. Yes, it's not like the biggest gap in the world. I don't know the exact numbers if you want to bring it up.
It's like 2 in the loss column.
2.5
Miami.
behind who? Okay, we'll see. We'll get back to that in early April. Charlotte will make the Eastern Conference play-in at least enjoyable to watch this year. I'll be honest, I haven't really watched it the past couple of years, but if Charlotte's there, I will be tuning in. All right, next tier. This is third tier from the top. It's only 2 teams, and this is could win any playoff series they're in, but will not win 4. They won't win 3 either, but I could see them winning any series that they're in. At the 10 spot, the Philadelphia 76ers, who we briefly texted about the other day. And at the 9 spot, the Houston Rockets.
No,
Sorry.
You're good.
Yes.
I was going Rockets. On all my life, I was going Rockets there. Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you chat a little bit about why you placed them there. As Shockey climbs on your neck.
He's chilling. Philly scares me. I'm not a betting man. Never bet in my life. But if I were to, I'd still bet on the Knicks in a playoff series against them. But Philly is a very, very high ceiling team. When you look at Tyrese Maxey, I can comfortably say, while he's not that two-way force that makes those guys elite, he is on the level of the Jalen Brunsons, the Cade Cunninghams, the Donovan Mitchells. He is up there with those guys, like without a doubt. You have super athleticism with VJ Edgecombe. As a rookie, I'm not expecting him to give you a lot offensively in a playoff series, but if you go out there and tell him your one job is to just face guard whoever is the best player on the other team, he can do that. Paul George will be back in time, and he'll have time to get some reps in beforehand. And Joel Embiid is he the biggest X factor in the NBA?
Yeah, I mean,
he might be. It's him or Aaron Gordon in my book.
Fair. I was gonna say Tatum, but I guess with his limitations upon coming back, even if he does return, I guess maybe you got to give the nod to Embiid or Gordon.
Tatum's a good shout, though. I mean, if Embiid is playing at a high level, not as their best player, but as their second best player besides Maxey, they have the ability to outscore any team in the league. Maxey, we've seen, is a playoff riser. He's had playoff experience now. And I just think if that team goes against Boston round 1, if they go against Detroit round 1, that won't probably happen, but it could, I guess. If they go against New York round 1, Cleveland round 1, I know we texted a little bit about this, but I would not be shocked if Philly beat any of those teams in a playoff series. I wouldn't bet on it, but I would not be shocked. I just with Embiid's health, I don't see them getting through an entire run in the playoffs. Embiid famously never made it out of the second round. But you give me one playoff series, those guys have a shot against any team in the league, especially in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I'd be I'd be pretty shocked if they beat Detroit or us. Boston, I'm gonna put as a TBD because either A, I don't know if Tatum's gonna be back, and or B, even if he is back, I want to see how that looks. I think,
You don't want to see how bad it looks as bad as Jalen Brown wants to see it. I'll tell you that.
oh, dude, I hate Jalen Brown. Like, I like Tatum. Tatum's so likable.
I'm t- we're
Yeah,
team Tatum.
I'm a big like I'm about as big of a Jason Tatum fan as you can get while hating his guts. That might sound the weirdest, like
Yeah. New York for Tatum over here. If he ever gets sick of Jalen Brown, we got a much more compatible Jalen for you in the superior
that doesn't
state.
mind. He doesn't need to be the hero all the time. He is Mr. Clutch. He doesn't need to be the hero. He's willing to defer sometimes to get his other guys involved. Would not be shocked if they beat Cleveland. I'm thinking about how you made the joke a few weeks ago. Imagine Donovan Mitchell and James Harden chasing Landry Shamet around screens. Imagine them doing that for Tyrese Maxey for an entire playoff series.
Oh my
That would
god.
be
Yeah.
barbecue chicken, man. That'd be insane. So yeah. I mean, I there are elements I agree with you on, elements I disagree with you on about that. I guess as it pertains to Houston, Houston annoys me, man. They have Katie's burner aside. They have so many. They have so many problems, dude. So many. Like the fact that they sat there with all the assets they had and sat on their hands during the deadline, didn't trade for a legitimate ball handler. Like I predicted,
That should have been a Dasunmu team. That should have been a
even
Dasunmu team. Or like a Kobe
A
White.
100%. But even like, and I predicted this guy in our preview, and he did get traded, but not to Houston, obviously. Even a Dennis Schroeder would have helped that situation. But like, they just,
Mhm.
and what would you have had to give up for Schroeder? You wouldn't even have to you probably wouldn't even have to,
It'd be
yeah, I
second
was going to
round
say, you wouldn't
picks.
even have to give up one of your
Like
treasure
2.
chests of firsts. And you sat on your hands and just did nothing. So unless you know something about Van Vliet that I guess the rest of us don't, and Van Vliet's actually coming back, which I haven't heard any rumblings about at all, like, what are you doing? I heard this specifically today on the Zach Lowe show. Kevin Durant has played in 50 of 52 games this year. Okay. Like, you are built to win now, and you're just taking for granted that a
Mhm.
37-year-old KD is just going to come back next year and do that again. When on average, since his Achilles tear, he's missed upwards of 20 games per season. And you have pristine health in him this year. Outside of him, you've struggled with losing Steven Adams. Obviously, I already mentioned Van Vliet. But the fact that you just sat on your hands and did nothing when you're built to win now is just, it's really, really bad roster management. They piss me off.
Yeah. It is poor roster management. And not only with the Van Vliet injury, but the Steven Adams injury now too. Yeah, I did put him on my all injured team. I didn't think he'd actually be out for the full year, but unfortunately, that's where we are. Their identity, their offense was so heavily based on offensive rebounding. And Steven Adams is the only guy in the league who's on par with Mitchell Robinson with that. You lose him, you lose so much of what makes you good. And I mean, Clint Capella's not the guy he used to be. Jabari Smith, and Katie's got some thoughts on him. And my thoughts on him is that he's certainly not a 5. So that that offensive rebounding that made you so special is gone now. They don't have a point guard like you said. But still, with Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, and then of course having Durant there, the athleticism around one of the best scorers of all time, combined with Şengün, who's not been great this year, but is still a talented big. I think if they get the right matchup in the first round, you could see them out physicaling and out athleticisming another team. Like that's a team that I don't think San Antonio really wants to see because those athletic young guards they have, part of what makes that so deadly and special is something that Houston can match up with and neutralize to a degree. So that's why I have them in this tier. I honestly considered putting Philly ahead of them. Houston has had a rough stretch. That first part of the year, they looked like a top 3, top 5 team in the league. That's clearly not what they are. And yeah, that's the tier. One last thing. You said you'd be shocked if Philly beat Detroit. You're telling me with Detroit's lack of scoring outside of Cade in a playoff series where a championship winning coach can hone in on Cade Cunningham and then you have the scoring punch on your end with Maxey, Embiid, and, you know, Paul George to a degree, you're telling me that they cannot pull out a series win?
I can't see them beating Detroit, dude. They're the way how physical Detroit is, they would just beat him beat up, man.
Embiid can rage bait, though. He could get Stewart canned from that series.
Yeah, as we
I'd love to see that. I'd love to see Stewart just swing on Embiid.
it's a series I'd love to see. Like, how great would it be if like this a second round series is like us versus Cleveland, and then let's say Philly beats Boston in the 4-5, and then gets Detroit in the 1/5 or whatever. That'd be a sick second round. I'd love that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how the Eastern Conference is not at the level of Eastern Conference. Looking at in those 10 teams that I have at the top, it's 5-5. Like, I don't think the East is as far off as they're made out to be, uh, especially with the rise of Charlotte and Toronto this year. Like, you have good young teams, whereas the West, those teams at the bottom like LA and Boston, are kind of on the downswing compared to the upswing. So maybe we're getting a little changing of the tide. All right. This is my next tier. This is tied for my biggest tier, actually. It's 6 teams. And these are flawed but legitimate contenders. These are all teams where if you told me they won a championship, I would not be shocked. Some of them I might be like, huh, that's interesting. But I could see it happening. There's a world where these 6 teams, any of them, could be the NBA champion in June. At the bottom of this tier, 8 is the Cleveland Cavaliers. 7, San Antonio Spurs. 6, Boston Celtics. 5, Minnesota Timberwolves. 4, our New York Knicks. And 3, the Denver Nuggets. This is great. We are in a league of parity right now where there are 8 teams, 6 in this tier and 2 in the top tier, where I could see them winning a ring. I do want to talk at least a little bit about each
Definitely.
team here. Where do you
Let's
want to
just go.
start?
Let's go in the same order we're going. So we'll go bottom up. So that would be the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mhm.
You want me to jump into it?
After you. After you.
Yeah, I feel like they're getting a lot of praise for how they've looked since the James Harden trade. It's been like 2 or 3 games. I think it's a little premature, and they have looked okay. They kind of needed the Nugget win was great. They kind of needed a lot to beat Sacramento, which was strange. I just We've seen James Harden consistently be a playoff dropper. We have seen, not seen, but we've talked about the limitations of that backcourt defensively between Don and James Harden. Go ahead, Ben.
And you know what we haven't
What's that?
seen? We haven't seen Donovan Mitchell in the
Yeah, he
conference
doesn't get enough
finals.
heat for
So he
that.
doesn't, yeah. Yeah. He doesn't have the rep of some other guys, but he's sneaky one of those ones too, where we haven't seen much playoff
And
success.
then you get to the bigs, so you got. I know I kind of skipped over like Max Strus or whoever ends up being their
What's his name? No, they got the guy now.
Jalen
Tyson.
Tyson.
What's his name? Jalen Tyson. He's
Yeah,
having a
yeah,
very good year.
sure,
That
sure. I
guy's
probably
cool.
shouldn't just gloss over him like he's not having a great year. He is. I look at their bigs though, and a guy like Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. Mobley can't stay healthy this year. Has not even come close to the offensive leap that some people thought he was going to take. Jared Allen. I look at the centers he's going to have to go through in the East. Mitchell Robinson, Jalen Duren, just guys that can.
I mean, even Kata could
Yeah,
eat
I
his
mean, he
lunch.
just can get pushed around so easily. He's soft, man. I don't throw that label around loosely. He's just soft, and it's just Cleveland bugs me. Not because they're not super talented, because they are. I just think that they're getting too much praise after 3 games for a move that is like we're gonna judge that move in April, May, and maybe June, as opposed to 3 games against the Kings in February. Go ahead.
2 things. Thing number 1, everything you said is true, but at the end of the day, they do have one of the most talented
They do.
rosters in the league, and they're pretty deep too, and that's why they're in this tier. They're at the bottom of this tier, but I could see them beating Detroit. I could see them beating New York. It could happen. I would not be shocked if they win the finals. Thing number 2, what is the food equivalent of Jarrett Allen?
Food equivalent of Jared Allen. Wendy's French fries. Because on the surface level, you hear fries and you're like, cool. You hear Jared Allen's on your team. Oh, cool. Then, then you watch him play. Then you take a bite of the fries, and they're criminally undersalted, underseasoned in every level, and they end up disappointing you and leave you wanting more.
They're pretty
Yeah,
limp.
There
They're
it
pretty
just
limp.
like, you think you're like, "Oh, this should be so much better than it is." And that's what Jared Allen is. This should be so much better than what it is.
Yeah, Jared Allen was the first guy where I watched him play basketball, and I think a man is.
Wow.
That's just the vibe I get
Yes,
from
ma'am.
him. He's just human mayonnaise.
I don't
Yeah,
know that I
I'm
have
not going to continue down the mayonnaise
yeah, I don't
rabbit
know that I have an
hole.
elaboration on
I had some other places we could go with it, but there's some other guys I think of mayonnaise. What was that thing on Thanksgiving?
something
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
All right, number 7, San Antonio. This is a team that they're only this low because they just don't have the playoff experience, and Wembanyama would need to take another significant leap on the offensive side of the ball in the second half of the year for them to be a top contender. But that being said, if you've beaten the reigning champions and still the best team in the league, technically 4 times, but really 3 times this year, because that 5th game that they played there was like no one playing. If you've like eaten OKC's lunch money multiple times, they are a matchup nightmare for that team, and the league still does run through OKC. And so San Antonio they have to be here. They that's a team with an identity. And that's a team that is not going to go down without a significant fight. Wembanyama may have the crown for most competitive guy in the league right now. You saw him crashing out a little bit on a certain Carl Anthony Towns in the All
That
Star
look
game for a
I
defensive
saw that, like,
rotation.
oh,
I've
God,
been there.
that lacked so much awareness. And just if they had let him dunk it, all they had to do on the other end was get a 2. They didn't even it's not like, "Okay, let him dunk and then we just need to hit a
Yeah.
3." Like, any bucket on the other end would have won the game.
Yeah. But San Antonio definitely is flawed in their youth, but a legitimate contender who I would not be shocked if they're holding up a trophy and
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, San Antonio is one of those teams. I think of the teams you named, this probably would be the team that I'd be most shocked about, not because they're not uber talented, not because that they're not well run or well coached, because of course they are. It's just I can't point to a team ever that where they won while a player or that team specifically was not super battle tested at some point in time. And I mean, we even saw it with the Thunder. I mean, last year. Well, who are you about to say?
I mean, they did make the NBA Cup final. Don't want to forget about that.
That
That did
that
happen. They went through some battles there in the great city of Las
let
Vegas.
me rephrase then. Weren't battle tested in April, May, and June in the NBA playoffs, where, God forbid I say, maybe a little bit more important than the Emirates NBA Cup.
What about this? And I'm only half joking here. Wemby has experienced some significant battles in Olympic
No,
basketball
that's I'm
with
not
Team
even.
France. Does that count for anything for you in this?
It does for sure. But it's not just Wemby. I mean, it's like you look at a guy even like Dylan Harper, who would probably have to be a really, really, really big part of the playoff run. He didn't even make the NCAA tournament last year. You look at,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
Stephon Castle won an NCAA championship, so I guess you can point to that.
Fox has playoff experience. He played a tough playoff series. He went 7 with Golden State and was dominant. And if he didn't hurt his finger, probably would have won that series. That guy is shown to be someone who's not afraid of the moment and will step
And
up in
he
the
is the clutch
playoffs.
player of the year a few years ago. They have guys. I just don't think collectively they have what it takes just yet.
Luke Cornett, NBA champion.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Harrison Barnes,
Yeah,
NBA
with the Warriors,
champion.
yeah. That's well, you bring up some decent points. Even a guy like that,
They haven't done
yeah.
it together, but individually they do have that
Yeah, I
experience,
mean,
let's
even
just say.
guys though like Keldon Johnson or Devin Vassell, not a whole lot to add on the adversity front there.
Mhm. That's true. And those guys are more important to them than Harrison Barnes, even though Barnes is a
He's a
big
nice
player
role
for them.
player. But yeah, so of the teams you named, that would probably be my most surprising, not just because they're in the West, just because I don't think they're battle tested enough. But then again, at the same time, you could easily come back and be like, really, really, you're going to be that surprised that Victor Wembanyama goes on this historic run and averages like 30, 10, and like 4.2 blocks per game in the playoffs. No, I wouldn't be,
Does like he could do something you would expect Cooper Flag to do, you
of
know?
course.
He could do something like that.
Who's next?
All right, number 6. This is probably the weirdest one just because it's so up in the air. This is where the Boston Celtics lie, I guess however you want to say
Yeah.
it.
I
Thoughts
honestly
on
think
on
that,
that
like,
team?
it credits to the Celtics. They're a phenomenal story too, whether I love it or hate it, and I hate it. But without Jason Tatum, I think they could go down in the first round if they get a particular matchup. It wouldn't be to Toronto. I think they'd beat Toronto. But like we talked about Philly earlier. They get Philly and Philly's healthy ish going into that series. I'd probably pick Philly. I think Boston's one of those teams that is going to be ultra competitive throughout the regular season, which is what we've seen so far. But I don't know if they have another notch to kick it up to in the playoffs as currently constructed. Vucevic is a cone. Their front court is unimpressive. Vucevic, Kada, Garza. I mean, Jordan Walsh is a nice story. I can't really fathom him being a significant component in the playoffs. It really rests a lot on does Jason Tatum return and how close.
We gotta assume that Tatum
Okay.
is
We
back
assume,
for this to happen. That's why they're here. We're assuming Tatum plays. What does that look like
like, in terms of their prospect or in terms of what it looks like on court.
on court? How does that look?
I've been thinking a lot about this. I feel like it looks very similar to what it looked like in the Celtics team that went to the finals in 2022, except they lack the substantial role players that that team's had, like a Marcus Smart, for example, Al
Al Horford.
Horford, for example. And this is probably the biggest thing, Brown and Tatum switch roles. Brown becomes the Tatum of that time, and Tatum becomes the Brown of that time. My bigger question is, can either role be filled to the extent that the previous guy, to the level at which the previous guy did it? Can Brown be Tatum as well as Tatum was that year? And Tatum coming off this Achilles injury, can he be as good as what Brown has been as the secondary, I believe your favorite word, tertiary creator, ball handler, scorer?
Well, tertiary
Oh,
is third,
oh,
but
my
yes.
bad on that one. So I guess that would be Derek White. My apologies. So I'll say secondary guy. I just think it remains to be seen if either of those statements are true.
Yeah, and I mean, locker rooms are just so important. And I do kind of love that this is the case. Brown really does give off a vibe that he is like, he does not want to be Robin. That
No,
dude wants to be Batman. He is not like that thing he posted with like comparing this year's team to last year's team. He's never outright said it, but even when they're winning, it's not like those guys are like best friends, you know?
no,
It's not like a Brunson and Hart
no.
situation. And there will be significant chemistry issues when Tatum is back there. End of a game, close game, like Brown's going to want the ball, Tatum's going to want the ball. And while Tatum, I think, is more willing to be a team player, famously the best role player in the NBA, Jason Tatum, if it's going to go down where Jaylen Brown's the guy with it at the end of the game, I'm never going to be scared of Jaylen Brown in a playoff series. That dude got outplayed by OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges last year. If he's your main focus defensively, the same way that teams are going to collapse on Cade in Detroit, if you collapse on Brown, turnover, turnover, turnover. He has gotten better from where he was a few years ago, but he is still not equipped to be that lead guy. You need someone else who can just play with a little more calm and be a little more posed out there.
Poised.
Is that the word? Poised. Be a little more poised out there than Jaylen Brown is. I don't know. Jaylen, I don't like his personality personally, and I don't think it leads to like I get he was Finals MVP. He shouldn't have been. That was Tatum's Finals MVP. I mean, it's the All Star game, so it doesn't really matter. But Jaylen Brown shot those dudes out of the last game. Like he was like, "Don't worry, I got this," and was just
Well,
jacking up bricks and
so
air balls. If he's doing that with Brunson and LeBron and KD, you think he's not going to do that with Derek White and Peyton Pritchard? Like he's going to go hero ball, and it's going to
so
hurt him.
the reason, remember when I texted you, "Hey, are you watching?" Remember when I sent that text to you? But the
Mhm.
reason I texted you that was because I was driving home. I was driving home from Brandon's actually. We watched USA Germany, and I was kind of intrigued in the All Star game. I thought it was a cool format. I thought the guys were trying for the most part, outside of Luka and Jokic, whatever. Screw them.
I didn't like the format, but I liked the way they were playing. It was the best All
Fair,
Star game in a
fair.
while. It was
But
fun.
I was tracking the box score as I was driving home, and I saw that Brunson had one shot. Everybody else had more than like 4 or 5, and Brown had like 11. So the reason I texted you, "Hey, are you watching?" was because I was hoping you were, and I was gonna say, I'm just box score watching, so I don't want to be that guy. But is Brown just out there chucking? And it sounds like he.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially in that last game too, where they got smoked by like the younger American
I did see
guys.
that. Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, you can't take much from like the All Star game. Although I'm going to take some positives from All Star Weekend for New York. But yeah, Jaylen Brown hero ball has got to be one of the ugliest things to watch in the NBA. Um, he's he's very Julius Randle. He's better than Randle. we'll talk about Randall in a second, but he's got some Randall tendencies to him. And yeah, so if Tatum comes back and he's looking good and they can figure it out, I mean, we've seen how good they are without Tatum. You bring back a guy who, when he's healthy, is a top five guy in the league. They could win a finals again. I will never count Boston out. They've almost like usurped this year that like Miami, like zombie Miami, is still just going to get up and keep going at you no matter really what happens to them. I think Boston's very similar in that way. They are just a professional basketball team. Um, but it is very dependent on how this Jason Tatum thing pans out. And if he's not playing for them in the playoffs, which I do think he will be, they would go down to that next year with Houston and Philly.
Makes sense. All right, you want to keep moving?
Yeah. So number five, we got Minnesota. We talked about them in the trade deadline podcast with the addition of DeSumo. I think it's very big for them. I have them at five, and we said it earlier. Denver's a little higher, but if Denver is going to continue to have these injury issues, and we're going to talk about their defense too a little bit, Minnesota could easily be my second favorite team in the West. I think I even said that the other week. Um, I mean, Anthony Edwards, he's one of those guys we've talked about at this podcast who is an elite star offensively, but gives it to you on the other end as well. They are just the scary thing is they are very Randall dependent, but they solve their biggest flaw, getting a point guard. Um, I think they don't match up with OKC particularly well, but if the bracket breaks right and like San Antonio bounces OKC or something, and then they see San Antonio in the conference finals or Denver, same thing happens there. Minnesota could easily win a playoff series against Denver or San Antonio. OKC, I don't see it. But that being said, with the right bracket, they could, I would even go as far as maybe saying they should beat basically any team in the league outside of OKC.
Yeah, I mean, they have the roster to do it. Obviously, getting to Sumo, just he's going to start for them, right? Or is he going to come off the bench?
Uh, I don't know if he's starting, but he is certainly finishing for them.
Yeah,
At
I'm trying to
least.
think. Who am I missing out of this? If you go,
Well, Dante.
yeah,
Dante was the starter, but he's not like they didn't have an actual
yeah,
point
yeah,
guard.
okay, that makes sense. So they should go in their closing lineup. I guess we talk about would be Desumu, Ant, Jaden McDaniels, Randall, and Gobert. I guess if you,
And then you have Devo and Nas Reed as your bench guys, and like Bones Highland,
yeah,
I guess.
that Devo and Nas Reed, that's about as good as a six and seven man combo as you could possibly get.
But then, but eight and
Is
beyond, they are
yeah,
pretty
well,
shallow, and that is a big flaw for them because you saw it with Indiana and OKC last year. To have a deep finals run in this high-paced league where guys are just putting so much wear and tear on their bodies, you do need a deep roster, which is why the number 14 is where they are now. We'll talk about them in a second. But I do think Anthony Edwards factor, the amount of two-way guys they have, and Randall was better in the playoffs last year than he had been historically. They've earned that five spot
yeah,
for me.
absolutely. Yeah, like I said, back to back Western Conference Finals appearances. I know the 24 team was much different makeup, obviously, than it currently is. But still, you got to give them a lot of credit, and I could see that. I don't really have too many notes on them. We already talked about them a little bit in context of Desumu. You are pretty good. There goes Shockey again. Yeah, I got nothing else on them.
Mhm.
Let's talk about a team that doesn't come up very often.
Yay. So New York is number four. I think, and you disagreed, New York and Minnesota for me are the two most confusing teams in the league. It's funny that they're kind of back to back in the standings of this, just because they're very roller coastery. They have these great moments and they have these very low moments as well. New York, while they have not earned the title of best team in the Eastern Conference this year, in my humble opinion, and an opinion that I think would be shared by non-Knicks fans too, they do have the highest ceiling out of any of these teams. When they are going right, they are going so right. Suns had an up and down playoffs last year, similar to the Randall thing, similar to the Harden thing, honestly. You're very reliant on a guy who has not been a pillar of consistency in the past. But Jalen Brunson has. That guy is a playoff riser. Josh Hart, playoff riser. Mitchell Robinson, playoff riser. Anunoby and Bridges, I wouldn't go as far as to call them playoff
Bridges was,
risers, but they're certainly not
yeah,
playoff droppers.
Bridges wasn't.
Like he was in stretches. He was a fourth quarter riser, which is the most important of the four. But I mean, that team is so good. And is a team that made the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and this gets A year later, this has been lost because of the Tatum injury in game 5 or game 4? Game 4, but he did play most of that game. Boston with a healthy Jason Tatum was going to go down 3-1 to the New York Knicks. And that was like last year's version of OKC, where it was like, who in the world is going to beat Boston? So they can do it. They've shown it. And now this year, they've added that bench and they are playing that bench. It's a little small, but with Alvarado, McBride will be back for the playoffs and hopefully have a couple weeks to ramp up. Landry Shamet, Mitchell Robinson off the bench. Plus, you get a little Mo Diawara, who we'll give him his own minute in a second. They have that ability that Indiana had last year, where you saw when Indiana played New York, they just had waves of guys, even if they're not all great, like Ben Shepard's involved, guys like that. But you just put body after body after body on Jalen Brunson, going full court with him, wearing him down, making him less effective offensively, and just making him a cone defensively even more than he already is. But he's been a little better this
Absolutely.
year. New York has that ability now where you start a game with Bridges hounding a guy, or Anunoby hounding a guy, or Josh Hart. You got 3 guys in the starting lineup who can do it. And then when you turn to your bench, you do the same thing with Shamit, McBride, Alvarado, and Mo Diawara. Hell, if you want to put Kevin McCullough in the game for a 2-minute stretch in a playoff series, I'm not going to kill Mike Brown on that because he's going to go out there and give you
You're
a
forgetting about a
very
body we can rotate on guys now defensively. Jeremy
Jeremy
Sohan.
Sohan, another guy who I don't want to see him for more than 2 or 3
I'd
minutes in a
rather see
playoff game,
Jeremy
to be quite
Sohan
honest.
than Kevin McCullough, quite frankly.
Yes, I would agree with you on that. But similar roles where you just have like legitimately 8 guys who can guard multiple positions. And whether it's Donovan Mitchell or Cade Cunningham or Jalen Brown or God willing in the NBA Finals, Shea, Jamal Murray, Anthony Edwards, whoever it is, they can wear down these lead ball handlers so much and just be constantly fresh, constantly pestering. And I think it's a little thing that I think is going to be so, so important in the playoffs. And I'm very excited to see it. And I just think it's going to change series in a way that New York has seen how that's hurt them being on the receiving end of it. And I think they're going to implement that. And I'm very excited to see it. And then with that, you have that high end talent offensively with Brunson, of course, and Karl Anthony Towns as well. They're coming in at number 4 for me. And I still wouldn't bet on it because I'm not a gambler in any way, shape, or form. But I would not be shocked if they leave this season as NBA champions. I'm saying that confidently
Yeah.
without bias.
I agree. I mean, we've seen what they can do when they're going right, whether it be the first 2 months of the season or whether it's been the 10 games, I believe the 10 most recent games.
And Indiana won't be in the playoffs, so we don't got to
Yeah,
worry
I mean,
about
with
that.
the exception of a hiccup against Indiana, which was very clearly a look ahead game because they went into Philly the next night and stomped them by 49. Granted, albeit no Embiid, but I mean, what was Embiid going to do? Well, we stomped them by 49. Listen, I mean, I was in the building, not this past Sunday. I was also even the Sunday prior where they played the hurting on not Washington. What am I saying? On Boston. We put Mo Diawara.
Second worst Boston loss of
Yeah,
the
it was
day.
great. It was phenomenal. Yeah, because they got belt later from Seahawks. Um, they put Mo Diawara on Jalen Brown, and all of a sudden that just neutralized Jalen Brown to kind of talk. I guess continue our conversation from a few minutes ago on that. This team ceiling is clearly very, very high. It's pretty limitless. I think if everybody plays their A game, I do think they're probably the 3rd best team in the NBA. Because if the Nuggets, and we would only have to go through one of them because it's probably OKC and the Nuggets that are ahead of us realistically. That'd be my take. I think if we play our A game and Detroit plays our A game, we win a very, very hard fought series. That's my thought on the matter. I think that'd be the thought of a lot of third parties as well. Maybe I'm wrong, but that
But the issue is with this Knicks team is that your odds of getting an A game from them are much different than your typical contender, I'd say. Because even in these good stretches, really haven't seen a game this year where I walked out of there and I'm like, A plus Brunson, A plus Cat, A plus a third starter. Have you seen that once where you've gotten like Brunson, OG, and Cat all with A plus games? I don't think we have.
okay, good question, honestly. Um, what was the game? What about the Denver game where Cat lacerated his eye and then Brunson dropped 40? Was there a third starter in there that like made a huge? OG
Yeah,
had
I guess
24.
OG he didn't
OG
play.
didn't play.
Oh no, he
Or
did
he
play.
played.
Yes, yes,
He's
he
on
did play. Yes,
24
that was
that
like right
night.
before he was out.
McHale was awful that night. He couldn't buy a bucket till that late three. You and I, Michael Bridges. But
Michael
Michael
Bridge,
Michael
singular.
Bridge.
Yeah, if we can evade Michael Bridge in the playoffs and have games like we had against Denver, yes, we are up there, best of the best. And I think a positive that we have seen is that outside of these Detroit losses, where one of them came when we were very injured and one came during a very rough stretch, for these big primetime games, that is when you are seeing
Yes.
the best of the Knicks. NBA Cup final, Christmas against Denver on a Sunday night basketball debut with the Lakers. I guess the Denver game was not on a Sunday. It was a Wednesday because, yes, I'll tell you why. I remember it was
Yep.
Wednesday after the pod. But on those big primetime games, like that is when New York brings their best. And so in the playoffs, I think you're going to see it. I'm hoping you're going to see it. I'm trying to speak it into existence because those flaws have come in like random game against Sacramento, no one's watching. Like you said, trap game against Indiana. Like when they are putting their mind and their effort into it, they can do it. And I think, I mean, if you're not going to do that in the playoffs, when are you going to do it? Last question on the Knicks before we move on. How many minutes a game do you want to see from Mo Diawara in game one, round one?
9, too
Yeah.
low.
And it's about, I would have said somewhere in that like 10 to 12 range. So we're in a pretty similar ballpark.
Yeah.
If you're not watching, if you're not watching, turn on a Knicks game and just watch Mo Diawara for like 5 minutes. This guy has a very high ceiling. He moves like Siakam, doesn't, and he's built like Siakam too. He might
He
even be a
is.
little bit bigger. He doesn't play exactly like him. He's that dude. You know how many corner threes he's missed this year? You've probably heard this on a
I mean,
podcast. Have you
he's
heard this?
missed.
How many corner threes has he missed
I
this
mean, I
year?
know he's shooting over 40% from three in general, but I don't know how many corner threes he's missed. No.
He's missed
Wait,
one.
really?
This is a Macri stat that he loves to throw out there.
On
This
just
guy has missed one corner three this year.
was it on how
What
many
was that?
attempts? I gotta know that because like it's impressive.
Attempts? It's like high teens. It's like high teens.
Way.
So it's not like a
No,
big sample size, but he's like 16 for
that's an
17 or
enormous
something.
sample size. Are
Like
you kidding me? 17 threes.
that dude's got a
That's
wet ball.
insane.
All right. Kid's got a wet ball. And I'm saying kid because he's like 19
Yeah,
or whatever.
he is
20, I
fine.
think, actually. He's 20, but he's been playing basketball for like 5 years. So it's in that Embiid Siakam vein where like they're coming in with this raw talent and they're not as developed as other guys. But yeah, because they haven't had the time to develop. But you're in an NBA system now and you're going to get that development. And he just got all these tools. He's a natural shooter and a great defender at 20. You don't
No,
see that
his,
often.
his defensive
Like,
skills.
and so he's just going to be this year in the playoffs. He's going to be one of those waves of guys that you're going to throw to just harass guys in space for Brunson. And going forward, like that dude's got like good starter potential.
He does.
Like him not being in the Rising Stars game was blasphemy, pure blasphemy. But yeah, he's great. I mean, Alvarado's been a great addition. He's another guy who the Knicks earlier this year, they're lacking that kind of toughness. And what did Jeremy Sohan say today? A bit of
Yeah,
nasty. You got two guys now with Alvarado and Sohan. Again, I don't want to see a lot of Sohan minutes, but if you're playing Detroit in a playoff series, put Sohan out there for a 4-minute stretch when Isaiah Stewart's out there. And just bark in his ear. Poke him a little bit, throw some elbows. You're going to get that dude tossed.
yeah,
It's going to happen. And so now that they have that little bit of nasty to go with the talent they have, and they have the depth to employ that wave harassing defensive strategy, I'm very excited for this final third of the year. And I'm not even like really a Knicks fan, so it's like pure just
yeah.
honest opinion here.
Last thing, truly the last thing. If there was a 2025 NBA redraft, does Mo Diawara go in the lottery based on what we've seen? I guess
He's definitely
we
going
have
first
to dive
round,
deeper into that, which we're not going to do right now. I guess we have to like go player by player and go,
but like
would you take Mo over this guy, over that guy, over this guy?
we'll do it this way. Brooklyn had 5 first-round picks. How many of those guys would you rather have than Mo
Maybe,
Diawara?
yeah,
Diego Gemin?
maybe Gioman, but that's it.
And maybe Drake Powell because he's a little bit safer, maybe. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't.
At that shit stage, if you're drafting in the lottery, you bet on the upside of the 6'9" dude who can shoot and has an uncanny defensive feel. Yeah, you would take him over that. Yeah,
7'3"
that's
wingspan.
ridiculous. All right, let's move on. And there's nothing wrong with it. We're approaching an hour and a half. We still got three more teams to hash out.
All right. Last team in the flawed but legitimate contender tier here is Denver. And if it wasn't for injuries, they'd be in this top tier that I got. But it just comes down to that for them. It's just constant. Gordon, Allen, it's Peyton Watson, Cam Johnson. I even like forget he's on the teams. He's
Also,
been hurt for so long. He started getting it going a little bit before he went out. But yes, it wasn't the start you wanted from him. But with the plethora of wins they have, wedged in between, similar to Brunson and Cap, but honestly a better version of it because Jokic is the best offensive player ever. Wedged in between Murray and Jokic. I mean, we all know it. They are realistically, when healthy, probably the second best team in the league.
yeah,
It's just a health thing. I guess the only other thing, they are down. Do you know where they're ranked in terms of defensive rating this year? Where they are now?
I'd bet they're like 22nd.
It's not that bad. They're 24, which is not
I just
good.
said 22nd.
Oh, they
Oh,
said
okay.
27. Yes, it is. It is. It is. 24 is worse than 22nd. Better than
Yeah.
27, also famously. But yes, they are 24th. So it's not pretty on that end. How much of that is regular season malaise? It's hard to say. How much of that is your top defensive wins being out for a sustained period? Probably a good amount. But the same way guys poke at the fact that you have Brunson and Cat as your front and back end of your defense, you can say the same thing about Murray and Jokic. And it's a very similar flaw to what New York experiences. It is something teams are going to attack in the playoffs. I mean, probably had a better defensive
Yo,
season than
that's dude.
Jokic,
I didn't realize
to
how
be quite
awful
honest.
he was defensively and how just immobile he is until like the Knicks played him, and I'm like, oh my, we can get whatever we want on this guy. He's doesn't move.
Yes. And again, he's another guy where it's like, he's been doing this for a while now. I'm sure it goes up a level in April, May, and June from where it is now in January. Or I guess we're almost in March, actually. Crazy. Time flies. Time flies when it's nice and warm and sunny every day. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's all I have on
Yeah,
Denver. Nothing but,
I could talk on Denver for a minute. They're just like maybe the biggest what not like I don't want to say what if like it's already passed them by, but they're a what can it look like team because they truly are maybe the only team that like can hold a candle to OKC. I talked a little earlier about oh if every team plays their A game. I said I think the Knicks are the third best team, and I have OKC and Denver ahead of them. A healthy Denver who plays their A game can absolutely beat OKC in a series, 100%.
I mean, they almost did it last year with a much, much shallower roster than they have now.
Absolutely. And you could argue, well, that battle tested OKC. This year's OKC team wouldn't allow themselves to get to a game 7 against that Denver team. But as you just said, you can easily come back with, yeah, Denver's way better this year than they were last year and deeper. And that's all true. The arrival of Peyton Watson this year has been a revelation. Hopefully he is able to get healthy ASAP with dealing with the hamstring injury. If Cam Johnson can continue to figure it out, I was not aware, honestly, that he was turning it on a little bit prior to his injury. I thought he's just been dreadful all year. So the fact that he was turning
No, he was
good,
turning a corner. He
good,
was turning a
because
corner.
I mean, I know obviously it's a very different situation, but I mean, Michael Porter Jr. was a borderline all-star this year, arguably one of the biggest snubs in the East, and Cam Johnson did not get off to a good start. Again, very different situations. One of them's chucking shots for a bottom-dwelling team. The other one's trying to find their fit in one of the best offenses that this league's ever seen. But regardless, so if they can continue to turn it around, he can continue to turn it around, then that could be huge. They got to get healthy though. They don't have a shot in the play to get through the West, the gauntlet that is the West, without getting very healthy very fast.
Yeah, especially Aaron Gordon. He's one. I mean, like I said earlier, maybe biggest X factor in the league. Aaron Gordon's great. You could have made a case before this injury that Jamal Murray, who just made his first All-Star team, is the third best player on that squad, behind Gordon at 2. Now we have the final tier, top of the cream of the crop right here. This is the contenders tier, the in all caps. At number 2, have Detroit. I think it's time that just like I know they're young, but they were battle tested in the playoffs last year. They had a great series against an Eastern Conference Finals team that could have made the finals if certain balls bounced differently. I mean, at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. I'm not going to read every stat to you, but everything indicates that they are here. They're ready to roll. And there's no reason why, with the way they've consistently played all year long, that they don't make it out of the East and have a shot to match OKC's physicality in the finals and win that matchup.
Yeah, that's pretty well said. I mean, and you talked about it earlier when we were talking about Philly. I guess the biggest concern would be, do they have an over reliance on Cade on the offensive end of the floor in the playoffs when you're able to really just hunker down? And if you don't have multiple guys that can go get you a bucket, you could be in a little bit of trouble. If you don't have their floor spacing is not particularly great with All-Star Thompson and Jalen Duren. With that being said, they make up for it with their defensive tenacity, their physicality, their ability to set physical quality screens. Osar and Duren's ability to be a connected passer. Shout out Zach Lopod. I heard that on there today. Um, but no, seriously, they make up for their lack of shooting in a lot of different ways. I do wonder what it looks like in a playoff series where the physicality ramps up and it's not like the regular season where you're just randomly encountering these teams, just as a one-off in an 82 game season, when you are spending, several days and maybe even depending on timing, maybe even a week game planning for this particular team. With that being said, I'd be shocked if they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And if you were to tell me that they were going to get to the finals and even win the NBA championship. Crazy as this to say for a team that went 14-68 just 2 seasons ago. It's not wild to me.
Yeah. And I brought up the numbers earlier, and just last point on them, a non-numbers thing here. They do have two things going for them that don't show up in the box score. Thing number one, this is the most connected locker room in the entire NBA. Those guys, they do love each other. It's very similar to that Knicks team from a few years ago with Devo and Hartenstein, where it's just, I mean, that's not going to show up on the stat sheet, but that is so important in a not only a physically taxing, but in an emotionally taxing playoff run. You need that connectivity. Maybe Biggerstaff, I don't think is the greatest like X's and O's coach, but if we're talking about leader of men coaching styles, a Dan Campbell thing, he's probably the best in the league. I'm having a hard time finding someone else. And then, so the other thing, like you played Detroit in a basketball game, you are playing a Detroit basketball game. They're not going to play your way. You're going to play their way. And maybe their way is a more common way in the playoffs. But even so, like you saw it against Charlotte. Charlotte, like Detroit wants to fight. They dragged Charlotte into that and they used it as momentum to close that game out. Like you're going to have to play a Detroit style series, and not every team is built to play that way. In fact, I'd say San Antonio and OKC are probably the only two who I would confidently say like also want to play the way Detroit wants to play. Maybe Phoenix for like a lower
I
level
was
team.
actually thinking about it. I'm like, because remember how Chris Finch threw threw a tantrum earlier in the year when the Wolves were playing OKC, who we'll talk about in a second. And ever since then, it's not like totally okay, but OKC isn't allowed to just full on play tackle football with teams like they previously were able to do. It
Hmm.
definitely drew the attention of the league, of the officiating. And I mean, you've seen it even record wise. Like since that moment, OKC has been like record wise has been like an above average team, not the juggernaut. The
18 and 13, I
18
believe,
and
is the
13,
number.
yeah. So there you go, slightly above average.
I don't know if that exactly lines up with the Minnesota game, but it was around that time period where this record kicked
I was
into motion.
watching Detroit probably when the Knicks were minus OG, Cat, Hart, and Alvarado. Is that who it ended up being? Like we just had nobody else,
I skipped that one. I did not want to
which
put
is
myself
which is
through that.
smart. The Knicks got thrashed that night because again they were down four of their eight rotation guys pretty much. Regardless of that, I was sitting there just watching them just like play like Detroit now does it. They play tackle football in the defense and they can just mug you. And I'm like, and it's not going to be Mike Brown because that's just not his personality. Although sometimes I wish he would stand up for his guys a little bit more. But I'm like, man, some coach needs to just flip their lid, like the way Chris Finch did with OKC. Be like, this is not okay. Wonder if it's a Missoula job. It could be a Missoula job.
Could be in Missoula. I'm looking through my list here of coaches who could whip that out.
Okay,
That out.
we need
I mean,
Spo. Oh,
Nick
Nick Nurse,
Nurse,
dude. We need Spo to do it though, because like Spo would. He's
he's
got
got the respect, the
yeah, like if
pedigree.
Spo just his mind.
Steve Kerr,
Yeah, but like they don't play Detroit enough. It has to be an in like it
yeah,
works so well because with Chris Finch, it was like, oh yep, they beat him up in the Western Conference final last year, blah blah blah. But if Spo comes out and does it, be like, whoa, Eric Spoelstra doesn't get like this very often. This must be valid.
yeah, that's a good call. I think that about
Yes, it
wraps
does.
Detroit up, and that just leaves us with our top team, top of the league, still the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think the margin has closed significantly over the course of the year, but they are still, without a doubt, the favorites to win it all. They're just a great team. I don't have a ton to say on them because we already know what makes them great. We've seen it now for 2 years.
God, man. Yeah, I mean, OKC, I'm not going to beat a dead horse on this one. They play so physically, they're so well connected defensively. The question is just going to be, are they able to just, I don't want to say stay in a series. Of course, they'll be able to stay in any series. Is their shooting going to be viable enough to bring them to the promised land again? Seems like they're being figured out to a certain extent. But again, with that being said, with all the talent they have with Shea, with J Dub, if these guys are healthy, with Chet, the way that iHeart connects that team, they, as you said, they're the favorite to win it all. And sir, I've submitted several futures on them already. I certainly expect the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the NBA championship, but would be thrilled if they don't.
There he goes. Hopefully, I'm not talking over you. But I would say I just want to add J Dub to my list of X factors because if that guy's healthy, they are the team. The way he's been this year makes him a lot more likely to lose on the way out. All right. I'm going to wrap things up today for us because Ben just texted me. So you get to hear from me. I don't normally do this, but it was a great show. Like I said, almost 2 hours, elite ball talk. So please share it with your friends, your family,
Your grandmother.
share it with that special someone. A little late Valentine's gift, you know. You might not want her to do the video mode or him because they will see me and Ben, and that can be a risky game for almost anyone's significant other. But have them listen to the audio. Hopefully, my sultry voice doesn't do too much for them. And have a great night. It was a joy.
Peace. Thank you, everyone.